I've been wanting to do a talk on charity for a while. I did one on faith and hope and love, so charity seemed like the next logical topic in that series. And I recently realized that what had been stopping me from being able to do the talk on this topic was that I really wasn't sure just what I thought charity is. Once I started thinking about the idea, one of the things that started to settle in my brain is that charity doesn't just mean different things to different people, but that for most of us, charity means different things from different points of view. Am I trying to be charitable in the eyes of God? That really isn't the same thing to me as if I'm trying to be charitable to a particular person. Or what I think charity is in general, in terms of taking care of our community and each other as humans. There's a story about Jesus where he tells his followers that a few pennies given by a poor widow has more value to God than the large donation given by the rich person, who's only giving generously because he has much to give. The implication being that, while he is giving much, he's not giving enough to be bothered by the donation. Unlike the widow, who gave her last pennies, leaving her with nothing. To God, what is important is what is gained for the soul. It seems from Jesus' comments here that what God is looking for is a real connection to the giving, a willingness to make a sacrifice for the sake of others. Charity, it seems, for the sake of the Spirit, is about sacrifice and the frame of mind of the giver. How pure are your reasons for giving? Are they untainted by selfish and, earthly intents? Are you more concerned with the profane rewards? Is it so others see you? Is it to obligate the receivers to you? Is it to buy your way into heaven? Is it about what you get in return at all? These are not the kinds of spiritual things that constitute the blessings of charity for your soul. But in the profane world of humans, charity is not just about the giver. It's also about the receiver. You would imagine in Jesus' time that there was some individual who was in charge of the distribution of the temple offerings. At least some portion of those offerings were used to educate poor children, to feed the hungry, and to generally help those unable to effectively take care of themselves, such as widows and the disabled. And you might imagine that this individual would not have the same view of the few pennies left by the poor widow as Jesus did, but rather would be grateful for the gold coin that allowed the support of the temple obligations. While God may measure the value of your charity by what it costs you to give, the community also measures the value of charity by what is gained by those in need. Let's look at a wealthy business owner who donates a pile of cash to a food bank because his accountant told him that he needed a deduction. For the sake of this discussion, we'll even say that, in truth, it meant that the business had more money in the end because of that donation. And that this is the only reason that the business owner made that donation. From Jesus' point of view, that wasn't charity. Not like the working stiff who hands his freshly purchased and only breakfast McMuffin to the homeless guy on the corner because of the hunger in his eyes. And it could well be true that there is no benefit to the soul of the businessman. Perhaps he didn't even consider the consequences of his gift. He only chose the food bank because it was an established charity unlikely to be challenged by the IRS. But to the person who runs the food bank, looking at an influx of hungry people, well, they probably don't care why the business owner gave the money. They care that they are packing their regular 200 boxes of food with 7 days worth of food instead of only 4. That probably means something to the people involved in the food bank. That meant something to the 200 people who picked up food boxes. No doubt this felt very much like charity to them. I expect that many of those people sent their blessings to the guy without regard for his motivation. Food is food, especially when you're hungry. We might also ask if a gift is charity. Do you get points in heaven or benefit to your spirit for the anniversary gift you gave your husband? Especially if you have shared finances? What about the birthday gift to your minor children whose support you're already obligated to? In general, when does giving to your family count as charity? Ever? What if it hurts you to give it and they sorely need it? In general, is helping family or friends the same kind of charity as when you help a stranger? There is a common spiritual teaching that says that your first obligation to the world is to take care of yourself. And when you have done that, to take care of your family. And then if you still have more you can give to your neighbors, your community at large, and then any stranger or person in need. I think that nearly nobody would feel that you get charitable credit for taking care of yourself, even if you concede that you do have a spiritual obligation to do so. But if you take care of your family, is it fair to say you don't get charitable credit when you do, just because they're closer to you? And there's an assumption of a give and take between family and friends? After all, you don't actually have a legal obligation to take care of your aunt or your grandmother or even your adult children. And you do help the community at large if your sister is taken care of and she's not leaning on the community. If you neglected the needs of your parents for the sake of helping strangers instead, would that give you more charitable points? Does it negate the charity of an act if the only reason you're able to do the act is because you neglected your obligations? If you give all your money to others in need and end up homeless and needing help, did you miss the point of charity? Or were those moments of sacrifice still loved by God and still food for your soul? Is there really any difference between a gift and charity other than the context it was given in? Which could be wholly unrelated to need. My grandmother once gave my sisters and I warm coats for Christmas. There was no doubt that we needed the coats. But I still don't think anyone involved, including my grandmother, thought of the coats as charity. They were gifts. I don't think my grandmother would have considered giving those warm coats to 3 kids in need of coats who weren't her grandkids. But we did need warm coats, and probably would not have them if she hadn't given them to us. On the other hand, if someone decides to donate boxes of chocolates to an orphanage, the kids don't need the chocolates, but I think most people would consider that a charity. Would it turn into a gift if it was given at Christmas and wrapped in red paper with bows on it? As opposed to just being part of a delivery of donated food in June? While the kids probably don't need the chocolates as food, it probably did bring them joy. Likewise, if an upscale butcher shop decided to donate quality steaks to a food bank, Most people would agree that the only need in terms of food is any good form of protein. But if the shop decides to do something that's also nice for those in need, giving more to the recipients than a can of chili with comparable protein would have given them, that is, the emotional joy of having something good rather than just sufficient. And perhaps it does more for the souls of those who decided maybe it would be nice for some poor people to have a good steak tonight. In general, is it a valid charity when you are giving something to make people happier, but they don't really need? Matt told us a while back about sitting in his car, homeless and alone on Christmas, and how it made him feel when a Mexican family came by and gave him some burgers and a hot burrito. While he and the other people homeless in their cars that night had a need for the warmth and food, what stuck with Matt was how it made him feel that someone showed him caring at a time when he felt alone and in need. And I would expect that giving the feeling of being taken care of was part of the joy that the givers received from their efforts. I would think that it was the personal attention, the people themselves walking up to someone in need and giving them something they needed that felt nice. That it added a lot to that profound good feeling of being cared about. Something that would not be part of a monthly auto deduction from your bank to the local battered women's shelter. But what about that silent internal joy of knowing that a woman was ever so grateful for the existence of that food, that shelter, when she had need? So is there charity in the act of simply making someone feel better? Might it be charity to give completely non-material things that cost nothing for the giver to give, but benefit the receiver emotionally? A kind word, a compliment, useful and needed advice or information. How about withholding hurtful words? Say a woman is going to pick up her brother who has had yet another car wreck. The brother is already having a really bad day. He is bruised and battered, and while not needing medical help, he is going to be hurting for a while. His car is totaled. He can't afford to replace it, and he has no other transportation options. And he's expecting the cost of a ride home to be a 45-minute lecture on the errors he has made that he is oh so totally aware of. And the sister so wants to give him that lecture too. In fact, keeping her mouth shut is about as onerous of a sacrifice as giving up those last pennies was for that poor widow. Would it be a charity if she picked up her brother and all she said when he got in the car was to ask if he wanted to stop and eat on the way home? I'll wager it felt like charity to the brother. In general, would it be a charity every time someone withheld their judgment, criticism, chastisement, anger, disapproval, or any and all hurtful words? What about if it's something they need, but it doesn't make them feel better? Giving someone something that you see they need, but they don't really want. Right? Paying for rehab for the friend who's not at all ready to give up that addiction. Having someone clean your hoarder mother's unhealthy home when she would rather be left alone there with her stuff. Paying for college for the kid who's really a lot happier driving a truck. Is it charity to give people things they need but they could and should do for themselves? The whole affluenza problem, where young people are supported and protected to the point of not learning to support or protect themselves. Or when people are given just enough support to keep them from needing to change things, but not enough to thrive and strive. Okay, what about paying your taxes? Which helps your neighbor or someone 4 states away to get food stamps or medical care, or even just clean water to a poor neighborhood, or maintaining the roads for the poor and rich alike. What if you don't give any charity at all, but you do pay a lot of taxes? And it does help many other people in a whole host of ways. What if that's true, but you actually object to some portion of your taxes going to aid the poor? What if, like most of us, you wouldn't even be paying your taxes if you had a choice? I once saw a movie where an IRS agent is dealing with a bakery owner who has underpaid her taxes. She informs him that she had calculated what portion of her taxes went to fund the military. And since she did not approve of her money being sent to the military, she chose not to send that portion of her tax bill. The IRS agent tries to convince her that she needs to pay all of her taxes anyway, which she refuses. And then, having grown fond of her, he offers to pay the unpaid portion himself, so he doesn't have to have her arrested, which she also refuses. Throughout the money, she's been giving baked goods to needy people who come into her shop. And so he points out to her that she can use her chosen donation of food to hungry people to offset her obligation to pay taxes for weapons of war. While more expensive in the long run than just paying her taxes, it is a legal way to shift part of her tax money from that which she thought bad to that which she thought good. A solution she does accept, allowing all of us watching the movie to have a happy ending. Is this woman a better person than the guy who donated to the food bank because his accountant told him that he would be to his financial benefit? Or the person who's just paying their taxes because their employer takes it out of their paycheck? Or the person who thinks maintaining an army is the job of the government, but giving aid to individuals is not? What if this person also donates to good causes to offset some portion of his tax bill so as to not support government-sponsored welfare? Both pay the same taxes, both donate the same to others. Neither one gets to determine how their taxes are spent once it's sent. It would be hard to say if the baker is viewed as a better person by God than the deduction-seeking businessman. There is a reality that we cannot truly know what God wants of us or what makes God happy. And to the extent that we read what Jesus said about charity being done with a pure heart and the value of making an actual sacrifice, but we don't have a pure heart, and we're not willing to put our last pennies in the red kettle at Christmas, are our feeble or self-serving gifts unworthy? While I expect that the receivers of help do get benefit from any emotional or personal additions that might come with the charity, the arrival of needed help helps, whether it's a shoulder to cry on or the anonymous delivery of a blanket. Personally, I persist in the belief that God is good, and that anything we do which helps makes the lives of people better is loved by God. If we are helping needy strangers or our needy kids, if it hurts us, makes us feel good, or we don't even notice, if we give quality goods or a helping hand. I also persist in the belief that which we do that is kind and good, which brings relief, happiness, or peace to others, brings relief, happiness, and peace to ourselves. That we are one and one with God, and God is one with everything. And thus, we are one with everything. I believe that every bit of help helps. I don't doubt that there are some kinds of charity, some frames of mind, some levels of sacrifice that are better in the eyes of God. It's also pretty obvious that some kinds and levels of charity do more good for the world as a whole than others do. But God and our mind and our soul loves every good act, no matter how small, no matter how much or how little sacrifice it entails. That every form of helping that I have talked about is good. There are many phases of faith, many kinds of hope, many ways to love, and likewise, many forms of charity, and all are good. Blessed be. Amen. If we could have a couple of volunteers to usher. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Mother of God. Keep it flowing.